I shouldn't be saying this. If I had any sense left, I'd delete this file, shut my mouth and try to scrape the memory out of my brain. But the truth has been festering in me, and silence only makes it worse. Maybe if I tell you, if I lay it all out, the weight will shift from me to you. What I found wasn't supposed to exist, at least not outside the walls of Nickelodeon studios, and maybe not even there. It wasn't a meme or a creepypasta, or one of those urban legends people whisper about on forums when they want to scare themselves before bed. This was real. I know it was because I still see it when I close my eyes. I discovered a lost episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. And before you roll your eyes, before you dismiss this as another internet rumor, listen carefully. The tape exists. The episode exists. But it's not the kind of thing anyone was ever meant to see. It changed everything I thought I knew about cartoons, about nostalgia, about the things we let play in front of children without ever questioning what might slip through the cracks. I grew up on SpongeBob like millions of others did. Bright colors, goofy humor, absurd characters, the kind of show that wraps itself around your childhood and stays there. That's why this is so dangerous, because what I saw wore SpongeBob's skin, but it wasn't SpongeBob. If you ever come across an old tape or a file claiming to be a lost episode, don't play it. Don't even click it. I didn't listen to that voice in the back of my head telling me not to, and now it's too late. This wasn't just a cartoon with darker jokes or edgy animation. It wasn't something you could laugh off as a weird creative experiment. The episode wasn't entertainment. It was a message, and the message wasn't for kids. It wasn't for fans. It was for whoever was unlucky enough to watch it alone in the dark, with no one to pull them back once it started. You might be thinking, how bad could it be? It's just a cartoon, right? Pixels, ink, sound design. But cartoons can hide things. Frame by frame, they can whisper things straight into your subconscious. Slip horrors between the jokes and you'll never know until it's too late. That's what this episode did to me. I don't know how much longer I can keep it together. Sometimes I wonder if I even left the episode behind or if I'm still inside it. But I need you to understand something before I go any further. The tape was real. The episode was real. And once I watched it, I couldn't go back. Because it wasn't SpongeBob smiling at me from the screen anymore. It was something else. When I think about it now, the only reason I even entertained the idea was nostalgia. SpongeBob wasn't just a cartoon I watched as a kid. It was a constant, a backdrop to my entire childhood. I can still remember running home after school, flipping on Nickelodeon, and hearing that ridiculous laugh echo through the living room before my backpack even hit the floor. Everyone my age had their favorite episode. Mine was Band Geeks, silly, lighthearted, almost perfect. But if you grew up with SpongeBob, you also grew up with the rumors. Whispered playground stories about band episodes, scenes too disturbing for TV, things Nickelodeon supposedly buried. Years later, when I got older and stumbled into obscure internet forums, those same rumors had been digitized. Lost media threads, people trading tapes of unaired pilots, rough cuts, snippets of shows that never made it past the editing room. Half the time it was junk, poorly spliced fan edits, corrupted rips that played up the creep factor for internet clout. But sometimes you'd find something real. That thrill kept me scrolling. Kept me digging through posts at 3 in the morning, trading files with strangers who claimed they had the good stuff. And yeah, I'd heard of Squidward's suicide. Everyone had. A story so infamous it almost became a joke. But part of me always wondered, was there a kernel of truth in there? Did someone really slip something through or at least animate it before it was buried? That question never left me. So when I saw the post, I should have known better. The account was new, barely any history, but the headline caught me like bait. Rare SpongeBob episode. Pulled after one test screening. I clicked. The thread was bare bones. Just a short description. This isn't Squidward's suicide. This one is real. Nickelodeon destroyed the masters, but not before a tape slipped out. Serious collectors only. Most of the replies were people calling it fake, demanding proof. The original poster only responded once with a photo, a VHS tape, black plastic. No label except for a strip of masking tape across the spine. Written in fading Sharpie were the words, SpongeBob 1 Real Final. Something about that picture stuck with me. It didn't look dramatic, didn't scream creepypasta material, it looked mundane. Real. Against my better judgment, I messaged him. At first, he ignored me. Then hours later, I got a reply. Most people don't want to see this. You're sure? I should have said no. Instead, I typed back, yes, I want it. He claimed he'd digitized the tape years ago and kept the file locked on an external drive. He sent me a link encrypted with a warning. Don't share it. Don't talk about it. Watch it once and delete it. I told myself it was probably another hoax, that I'd click the file and find some poorly edited mashup of creepypasta cliches. I'd seen a dozen like it, but still, when I downloaded it, my chest was tight with anticipation. The file size was huge, bigger than any cartoon episode had a right to be. The metadata was corrupted. Creation date listed as January 1st, 1970. The kind of thing you only see when a system doesn't know what to do. I remember sitting there with the file on my desktop, my cursor hovering over it. The yellow SpongeBob folder icon I'd set years ago looked suddenly sinister beside it. I thought about being a kid again, about laughing at absurd jokes and singing along to that ridiculous theme song, about how harmless it had all seemed. And then I thought about the Sharpie label, SpongeBob 1 Real Final. Why did that phrase feel more like a warning than a file name? I should have stopped right there. But curiosity, nostalgia, maybe both, drove me further. I had no idea what I was about to invite into my life. When the file finished downloading, I just sat there staring at it. The icon was blank, generic, not a media logo, not even the kind of thumbnail you'd expect for a video, just an empty square sitting on my desktop like it didn't belong. The file name was exactly like the photo. SpongeBob 1 Real Final AV. That final part got under my skin. Anyone who's ever worked with media files knows the joke. There's no such thing as a final version. You get endless chains like Final 2 or Final Real. But this one had a sharpness to it, like someone really meant it. I checked the properties, hoping for something that would make sense of it. Instead, I got more wrongness. The creation date read March 1999. The modification date read March 1999. Last accessed? Tomorrow's date. I refreshed, thinking it was a glitch. Same result. My throat tightened. I pinged my friend Ethan on Discord. If anyone would give me a reality check, it was him. Bro, I typed. Got my hands on something cursed. He responded instantly, like he'd been waiting. Cursed how? Like porn virus cursed or creepypasta cursed? Lost SpongeBob episode cursed. There was a long pause. Then LMAO, what is it? Squidward Suicide 2, Electric Boogaloo? I snapped a screenshot of the file info and sent it over. Okay, that's weird, he admitted. But probably some dude editing metadata for the meme factor. Don't tell me you're actually thinking about opening it. I'm just curious. That's how horror movies start. I laughed in the chat, but it felt hollow. My fingers hovered over the file like they already knew what I'd do. When I finally double-clicked it, the media player opened instantly. No loading wheel, no buffering. For a second, I thought it was just normal. The SpongeBob theme blasted from my speakers. The same upbeat tune I'd heard 1,000 times as a kid. The colors were bright, the animation smooth. SpongeBob bounced across the screen in his little white shirt and tie, goofy as ever. I almost breathed out in relief. Just a stupid hoax. But then the first glitch hit. It was tiny, almost nothing. When SpongeBob opened his mouth to laugh, the sound stretched too long, warbling like a tape dragged through water. It lasted only a second before cutting back to normal. I frowned. The episode title card popped up, white letters on a blue background. But instead of a punny title like Rock Bottom or Pizza Delivery, This one just said, Episode 1, no bubbles. No music, just silence after the theme ended. The next shot was SpongeBob's house, the familiar pineapple under the sea. But the colors looked off, not just faded, but wrong, like they'd been oversaturated and then drained. The sky was a dull, bruised purple instead of blue. SpongeBob stepped outside, waving. His smile looked too wide, too stiff. His eyes locked straight at the screen. For a moment, I swear it felt like he was staring at me. Okay, I muttered to myself. This is definitely some creep edit, but I didn't pause. I didn't stop, because some part of me needed to see how far it went. That was my first mistake. The first few minutes lulled me into thinking maybe it was just an unfinished cut. A rough draft of an episode that had never been polished, nothing more. SpongeBob walked into the Krusty Krab, greeted Squidward at the register, and launched into one of his usual chipper monologues about jellyfishing and fry cooking. But the pacing was wrong. Scenes lingered too long after the jokes should have landed. When SpongeBob spoke, the camera didn't cut to Squidward's annoyed reaction right away. Instead, it just held on SpongeBob's face, unblinking, smiling too wide. The audio was off too. The jaunty background music that usually bubbled along underneath the dialogue was missing, replaced with a faint droning hum. I leaned closer to the screen, uneasy but hooked. Then SpongeBob said something I'd never heard before. Do you remember this? I froze. His voice wasn't the cheery falsetto Tom Kenny always used. It was flatter, deeper, strained, like someone imitating him through a bad microphone. The camera cut to Squidward. His eyes were wide, mouth slightly open. He looked genuinely confused. "We're not supposed to be here," Squidward muttered. His voice cracked on the last word. I sat back, my skin prickling. This wasn't just a rough cut. The scene changed suddenly, cutting to Patrick's rock. The transition was jagged, like someone had spliced the film with dull scissors. Patrick crawled out looking disoriented. His pupils darted around the frame like he was aware of the camera. "SpongeBob?" he asked, voice trembling. "What's happening?" The shot cut back to SpongeBob. He was still smiling, but his mouth didn't move in sync with the words that followed. "You're watching us," he said. I muted the video out of instinct, my heart racing. When I unmuted, the audio was different again. Multiple voices overlapped, all slightly out of sync, like layers of dialogue stacked together. Some said the lines I remembered. Others whispered things I couldn't make out. The next cut was even worse. The background, the familiar underwater landscape, was wrong. The colors bled together, purple and green streaks running like oil in water. The houses sagged at odd angles, windows blank. SpongeBob stood in the middle of the street, his body slightly warped, limbs too long. He didn't blink. "Do you want to see more?" he asked. Patrick stumbled into frame. His eyes were bloodshot, his breathing ragged. He looked at SpongeBob, then at me. "At the screen." "We're not supposed to show them," Patrick said. His voice cracked. He looked terrified. SpongeBob tilted his head, that grin never faltering. "It doesn't matter." He already pressed play. The voices layered again. Some screamed. Some laughed. Some whispered my name. I paused the video, heart pounding in my throat. The frozen frame showed SpongeBob leaning closer, face almost pressed against the camera. His wide, wet eyes staring directly at me. I wanted to stop. Every instinct screamed at me to close the file, delete it, and forget it existed. But my hand moved the mouse anyway. I pressed play. The scene jumped violently. No transition, no fade. Just SpongeBob sitting alone in his house. The walls behind him dripped as though they were melting, the furniture sagging. His hands twitched on the table. Patrick's voice echoed from somewhere off screen. "Stop it, SpongeBob. Please stop it." SpongeBob didn't move. His eyes shifted slightly toward the screen again. "You'll never forget this," he whispered. The hum in the background rose into a screech, high-pitched and grating. The animation began to degrade, colors bleeding, outlines breaking apart. frames jittering like the tape itself was rotting. The last thing before the cut to black was Squidward stepping into the room. His face pale, eyes hollow. He looked straight ahead, voice almost human this time. "Turn it off," he said. Then the screen went dark. I sat there in silence, my chest tight, palms sweating, listening to the faint buzz of my laptop fan. I told myself I should stop, but I didn't, because part of me needed to know how deep this went. I should have stopped. God knows I should have stopped. But when I tried to close the file, my mouse lagged. It was like the cursor fought against me, freezing, jumping a half-inch away from the X. And when I finally clicked out of it, I found myself reopening the folder without thinking, double-clicking the episode again like I didn't even have a choice. Only this time, I didn't just watch it through. I started scrubbing, frame by frame. It didn't take long to notice the first one. A single, almost imperceptible splice. For half a second, the episode flickered to an image that wasn't supposed to be there. I reversed, froze, and there it was. Bikini Bottom, but not the one I knew. The houses were collapsed into the sand, as though years of rot had eaten them away. The sky wasn't ocean blue, but a cloudy, static gray. In the distance, I thought I saw shapes, fish maybe, but they weren't alive. Their bodies sagged, their eyes pale. I exhaled sharply and moved forward. Another splice, a few frames later. This one was a close-up. SpongeBob's face filled the screen, but it wasn't cartoon anymore. It was realistic. Sickeningly so. His pores stretched across his yellow skin like craters, his teeth jagged and too human. His eyes were bloodshot, veins creeping into the whites. The shot lasted maybe a tenth of a second, but it burned itself into my brain. I kept scrubbing. Each time I thought the episode had returned to normal, I found another. A bloated fish corpse floating upside down in black water. Patrick with his mouth stretched wide open, as though screaming silently. Squidward curled in a corner, his body trembling like he'd been crying for hours. But then came the frame that made my stomach drop. It wasn't SpongeBob. It wasn't any character at all, it was me. Not exactly me, but close enough. My reflection distorted like a warped mirror. My skin looked damp, melting. My eyes too wide, staring directly outward. The worst part? The background behind that reflection. It was my room, my desk, my chair. I slammed my laptop shut so hard it rattled on the table. My heart hammered in my chest, my breath short and shallow. I waited a full minute before I opened it again. The desktop looked normal. Just my wallpaper, just my files, but my hand still shook as I navigated back to the video. I told myself I was imagining things, just a trick of the mind, pareidolia, whatever. But when I scrubbed further, I found the next splice. This time, it wasn't an image. It was audio. Buried in the static of the soundtrack, there were voices, distorted, overlapping. Fragments of sentences bleeding into each other. "We remember. Don't look. He's still watching." I replayed it 3-4 times, each time catching another sliver of a phrase, like the voices wanted to be heard but were fighting against the distortion. And every time I hit play, the hum in the background seemed louder, like it wasn't just part of the file anymore, like it was coming from the laptop itself. I sat back, staring at the frozen frame of SpongeBob's warped face, my skin crawling. What was this thing? It couldn't be an actual production. Nickelodeon could never greenlight something like this. So who had made it? And more importantly, why had it ended up here, hidden in a folder on my laptop? The episode continued to unravel. The deeper I scrubbed, the more forbidden frames I uncovered. Some were cartoon stills, grotesque but at least familiar. Others weren't. They looked filmed. Real, rotting sea life piled in heaps. A hand pressed flat against glass, pale and twitching. A hallway lined with doors, each one slightly open, just enough to suggest something moving in the gaps. I felt sick, but I couldn't stop. Each discovery was like a hook in my brain, pulling me deeper. And then came another reflection, Not distorted this time. Clear, crisp. Me, again, staring back. Except this time my reflection smiled, and I didn't. I jerked back in my chair so fast it nearly toppled over. My laptop screen froze on that single frame, holding the image like it knew I was watching. I reached for the power button, but before I touched it, the video skipped ahead on its own to SpongeBob, still in his house, still unblinking, and in that same flat, lifeless tone, he spoke. "You shouldn't have seen that." I snapped the laptop shut again, harder this time, my breath ragged, my whole body trembling. The words rang in my head long after the screen went black, and even then, even after that, I knew I wasn't done. Because no matter how much I wanted to stop, something in me needed to know what came next. Something in me felt like I didn't have a choice anymore. The thing about fear is that it doesn't just sit in your chest, it leaks, it spreads. Into your thoughts, into your sleep, into the corners of your room that you've stared at 1,000 times without a second thought. That night, after I shut my laptop for what I swore would be the last time, I noticed how different my apartment felt. The hum didn't stop. At first, I told myself it was the fridge, or the pipes, or just the ghost of the sound burned into my ears. But when I pressed my palms against the sides of my head, muffling everything, the hum was still there, internal, like it had nested inside me. I turned on every light in the place, pacing from room to room, forcing myself to look. The couch was empty. The bathroom mirror showed only me. The windows reflected only light. Everything ordinary, until I caught it. A flicker. In the glass of the microwave door, for a split second, I thought I saw SpongeBob's warped face. Not cartoon, not the reflection I'd seen in the frames. This was a hybrid of both. Realistic, wet eyes bulging, lips curled into a smile that didn't match the flat, frozen tone of his voice. I spun so fast I nearly tripped, but nothing was there. Just me, the kitchen light too bright, my pulse too loud. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on the couch with my laptop closed on the table in front of me, as if keeping it in sight meant I was in control. The longer I sat, though, the more wrong the air felt. Too heavy, too charged. At some point, exhaustion won. My eyes closed and I dreamed, except it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like another episode. I was underwater, drifting, everything around me gray and clouded. Bikini Bottom's outlines hovered in the murk, warped and falling apart. Buildings crumbled into sand. Bubbles escaped corpses that floated like grotesque balloons. And standing there, half lodged in the sand like an abandoned statue, was SpongeBob. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me, eyes stretching too wide, arms hanging stiff at his sides. Then he opened his mouth. The voice was mine. "You let us in." I jolted awake, gasping, clutching at my throat. My apartment lights were still on, but the hum was louder now, constant like static running beneath reality. I glanced at the laptop, closed, harmless, except when I picked it up. The hinge felt warm, like it had been running all night. I didn't want to, but I had to know. I opened it. The desktop looked normal at first, but one by one folders began to appear. Not system-generated, not mine. Just new folders populating the screen in a neat little grid, each one labeled the same. Episode. I hovered my mouse over one, then another, all created within the last few minutes. All of them empty. Except when I clicked the fourth one, there it was again. The file. Lost episode. Done MP4. I hadn't copied it. Hadn't moved it. But here it was, back like it never left. This time I didn't scrub frame by frame. I let it play. The episode picked up where I'd left off. SpongeBob's house. His body still, his smile too human. He tilted his head slowly, unnaturally, and for the first time since I started watching, his eyes moved. They followed me. Not my avatar in the story, not some implied audience. Me, sitting on my couch in my apartment in real time. I know how insane that sounds. I know how impossible it is. But the way his pupils tracked, the way his mouth twitched into something between hunger and recognition, I knew he saw me. The background began to glitch. The pineapple walls stretched and warped, melting into something more like my living room. The couch, the table, the lamp, it was all there, crudely drawn but recognizable. And then the screen went black. In the reflection, I saw myself, not distorted this time, not smiling. Just me, except not alone. Over my shoulder in the reflection was something else, a blur. A figure too close to make sense of. Just the suggestion of another head leaning over me, watching. I froze, every muscle locked, too afraid to turn. But then the laptop speakers crackled, and SpongeBob's voice bled through again. "Don't turn around." The hum roared in my ears, louder than ever. Like the warning was both inside me and outside me at once. I slammed the laptop shut again, chest heaving, eyes darting around the room. Nothing. No one. But I didn't need to look behind me to know something had shifted. The air wasn't just heavy now, it was wrong. Too cold, too still, the kind of stillness that feels alive. I grabbed the laptop and shoved it into my closet. Burying it under blankets like that would do anything. For the rest of the night, I sat with my back against the wall, staring at the door, waiting. Because I knew deep in my bones that shutting the laptop didn't shut it, whatever it was. And maybe the worst part? Somehow I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just happening to me, that the episode wasn't just an episode, that it was a signal, and I had tuned in. You'd think after a night like that, after seeing what I saw, I'd call someone. The cops, a friend, tech support even. But when I reached for my phone the next morning, the screen was already on. Not my home screen, not my messages, a video, playing automatically. The same distorted intro sequence from the Lost episode, except the aspect ratio was vertical, like it had been filmed for a phone. The colors flickered, pixelated. And then, my own contact list appeared on screen, scrolling by. Line after line of names, then it stopped on one. My sister, and for a single frame, SpongeBob's warped face flashed behind her name, his eyes flicking toward me like punctuation. I dropped the phone. It clattered across the floor, the sound too loud in the silent apartment. "Enough," I muttered. My voice cracked. I sounded like a child. I forced myself to think logically. Wipe the hard drive. Factory reset my phone. Destroy the files. Whatever it took. But when I opened my laptop closet door, the closet was empty. The laptop was gone. I hadn't heard anyone come in. The lock on the front door still latched. But the blankets I'd buried it under were pushed aside like something had crawled out on its own. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with a cursed file. It had already bled out. All day, things kept glitching. My smart TV turned itself onto a blank channel and stayed there, static whispering faint words I couldn't quite catch. Streetlights outside flickered as I passed, like a heartbeat trying to sync with mine. I tried to keep my head down, work, walk, pretend. But that evening, I got a text from my sister. It was just a photo, no caption. The photo was of her living room, except she wasn't in it. And in the corner of the shot behind her couch was SpongeBob. Realistic eyes, yellow pores, that same human smile. I called her immediately. It rang once, twice, then I heard it. Not her voice, the static, then my own voice, distorted. "You let us in." The call ended. I dropped the phone again, my heart hammering so hard it blurred my vision. I didn't know what to do. Every option felt useless. Run from what? From where? By nightfall, it wasn't just my sister. Random posts started appearing on my social feeds. Screenshots of the Lost episode, blurry clips, threads of people claiming they'd found it too, their captions frantic. "Do not watch the frames. Don't scrub," and every time someone posted, The account went dark hours later, deleted, gone. It was spreading. Somehow, just seeing it was enough, and I dragged my sister into it without even touching a file. That's when the guilt set in. Heavy. Crushing. It wasn't just me anymore. I had made this thing visible. I locked myself in my apartment and shut off the internet, unplugged my router, turned off every smart device I owned, sat in the dark like a cave dweller, trying to slow my pulse, trying to unhook the thought from my brain. It's in here with you, because even without screens, I could feel it, a subtle shift in the air, the faint echo of bubbles rising through water, the smell of salt creeping under the door like a tide, and worse, the laugh, that high-pitched, distorted laugh. Like SpongeBob's original giggle, but slowed and flattened, a parody of itself. I pressed my palms to my ears, but it didn't help. The sound wasn't coming from a device, it was in the walls, in me. When my phone vibrated again, I almost didn't check. Almost. But the message preview was a video thumbnail. It was my own living room, live, filmed from the corner of the ceiling. I didn't have a camera up there. In the frame, I could see myself curled on the couch, holding my phone, and behind me, just out of focus, a yellow blur creeping closer. The thumbnail changed as I watched, each frame updating in real time, the blur sharper, nearer. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and went dark. I didn't move. Couldn't. Because some part of me already knew. Running wasn't an option. The curse wasn't just on my devices anymore. It was in the room. And the more people saw it, the closer it got. This is the part where I should tell you how it ended. How I destroyed the laptop, or called a priest, or found some ancient ritual buried on a dead forum that saved me. But if you've been listening closely, you already know that's not how this story goes. Because I didn't stop it, I couldn't, and neither can you. I'm typing this now on a borrowed machine, one that isn't even mine, in a place I won't name. The hum is still there, constant, like blood rushing in my ears. I know it'll never go away now. I tried everything. Burning the phone, smashing the router, pulling every cord out of the wall until my apartment looked like the skeleton of a home. But the curse doesn't care about walls or wires. Once you've seen it, once you've scrubbed those frames, it stays with you. It waits. The last time I opened the file, it wasn't even me who opened it. It just played. By itself. SpongeBob was still there, sitting in his house, only now he wasn't alone. Patrick was behind him, eyes black pits, drooling like something rabid. Squidward hung from the ceiling by his tentacles, twitching every few seconds, not quite alive but not quite dead. And SpongeBob spoke again. This time, not flat, not monotone, this time he was laughing. You've brought them all. The camera panned, something it had never done before, and the scene widened. I saw houses stretching into the distance, every window filled with faces. Not cartoon faces, human ones, pale, rotting, staring, and in the middle of them all, a screen, my screen. The perspective shifted until I saw myself in real time, watching. That's when I realized the truth. The episode isn't just a story. It isn't just cursed footage. It's a signal, and every person who watches it becomes another frame, another stitch in the fabric of whatever this is. That's why the reflections looked like me. That's why the voices used my tone. It's not SpongeBob anymore. It's not even a show, it's us. Every viewer, every click, every person who can't look away. And now I've done what I swore I wouldn't. I've told you. You've read this far. You've pictured the frames. You've heard the voice in your head, whether you admit it or not. You let it in. Maybe you think closing this will help. Maybe you think forgetting will protect you. But I've been down that road. The hum doesn't leave. The reflections don't go away. Soon you'll hear it too. In the static of your TV. In the flicker of your webcam light. In the silence just before you fall asleep. And when you do, you'll remember me. You'll remember that I warned you. And you'll remember SpongeBob's final words, the ones I hear every night. the ones echoing even now as I type the last line I'll ever write. Don't turn around.